All right, so here's our lab topology. We've got two remote workstations connecting through Cisco Secure Access. Chang is in the HR group, running Windows 10, and Freeman is in IT on Windows 11. Let's start with the Secure Access Overview dashboard. You can see the connectivity status and network tunnel groups right here. Over on the security side, we've got malware blocks, phishing stats, and the top security categories all visible at a glance. Here are the user trust levels and connection events. VPN connections and ZTA authorization requests are all tracked. And down here, private resources showing which applications are being accessed, with a full breakdown of VPN, client-based ZTA, and browser-based ZTA traffic. Now let me open the access policy. These are all the rules we've configured. I'll select the Internal Network Services rule first. So this rule allows access to our internal DNS and ISE resources for all private access connections. Under Private Resource Groups, the Internal Network Services group contains both the internal DNS and ISE resources. And these are the rules that reference this group: Internal Network Services and ISE stuff. The ISE stuff rule allows any source to reach internal network services via both ZTA and VPN. Back to access policy. Now let's look at the HR IPS test site rule. This one's for the HR and finance groups. It allows HR and finance AD groups access to the IPS test site and its associated destinations. Here's the All Employees Apps rule. This provides intranet access via both ZTA and VPN, with IPS and posture checks enabled. You'll notice IPS and security profiles are attached, along with a Windows 11 only endpoint posture requirement. That's going to be important later. HR Private Apps gives finance and HR groups access to the file server via VPN and client-based ZTA. IT Private Apps is for the IT group only, RDP via browser, SSH VNA, and Splunk via VPN. The client-based ZTA to RDP rule requires Windows 11 with an enabled firewall for posture compliance. Windows 11 and an active firewall. Those are the requirements set by our custom Zero Trust posture profiles. And at the very bottom, the default access rule blocks all unmatched private access. That's true Zero Trust design. Deny by default. Now let's switch to workstation number 1. This is Chang's machine, RWKST1, running Windows 10. I'm opening Certificate Manager to show you Lee's user certificate. This is what he uses for VPN authentication. Certificate issued to Chang by the CA at d1.pseudoco.org. The subject alternative name confirms his identity. Back on the desktop, watch the Cisco Secure Client. It connects automatically to sudoku HR using certificate authentication. VPN connected to sudoku via TLS. No password needed. The certificate handled everything. On the admin side, let me show you end-user connectivity. Here are the Zero Trust access profiles and traffic steering settings. The remote access log shows 39 VPN events. Lee's connection details show device, OS, and session type. Checking the VPN statistics on Lee's client. IP address 1066.180 was assigned through the tunnel. Now let's test file access. Opening File Explorer and navigating to the file server at smbd1.org. Entering the full path, waiting for the server to respond through the VPN tunnel. There it is. The server shows Lee's share and a public folder. Let's select the Lee folder. Windows prompts for network credentials. Entering lee.chang to authenticate. And here are Lee's files on the HR file server: eicar, leaf1, leaf-file, lee-test file, and test, all accessible. Let me verify the file details. Everything's accessible through the VPN connection to the SMB share. On the admin side, the remote access log confirms Lee's VPN session. Now I'll navigate to private resources. The file server resource shows 2,099 total requests. Address is smbd1.pseudo.org in the HR apps group. Let me check which rule allows this access. Navigating to Access Policy and opening HR Private Apps. HR Private Apps allows the finance and HRAD groups to reach the file server destination. That's why Lee has access. Opening Activity Search now, filtering by Lee Chang's identity to review his connection events. Here are the results. Lee's connections to 10.10.3.240. Event details confirm it matched the HR Private Apps rule. More event details. The connection was allowed through secure access via the HR Private Apps rule. Everything checks out. Back on RWKS1, just verifying Lee's file access one more time on the SMB share. Files confirmed. Now let's look at the activity search filtered for blocked events. Lee's attempts to reach Splunk were denied. The default access rule blocked these connections. Lee isn't in the IT group, so Splunk is completely off limits for him. Private resources shows Splunk with 13,539 total requests. Lee's access attempts were blocked by the default rule. Splunk sits in the IT apps group. Only the IT private apps rule allows access, and Lee is blocked by default. Now let's switch to workstation number 2. This is Carol Freeman's machine, RWST2, running Windows 11. Carol's Cisco Secure client is ready. AnyConnect VPN with the pseudo-coat profile, and ZTA is not yet enrolled. Connecting to pseudo-coat. This profile requires SAML authentication, so watch the login window appear. Pseudoco single sign-on. Carol enters her email carol.freeman@d1.pseudoco.org and authenticates. After the SAML sign-in, the VPN banner appears. Pseudoco VPN, authorized users only. VPN is now connected for Carol via SAML on pseudocoat with TLS encryption. Notice this is different from Lee's certificate-based auth. On the admin side, private resource group shows the IT apps group. HQRDP, HQ Server 1, and Splunk are all associated. Under end-user connectivity, the VPN profiles show the pseudo-coat configuration. Notice the SAML authentication method here. IP pools for pseudo-coat, 10 byte 185 SO 24 with 254 connections available. SAML authentication is confirmed. Let me check the remote access log. Here's Carol's event highlighted. Device ARPro2 Windows 11 connecting through the pseudo SAML profile. The event details confirm Carol's VPN session. Public IPv4, internal IPv4, and VPN profile is pseudo-coat. Back on RBKST2, Carol opens Chrome and navigates to Splunk, and it loads. She's in the IT group, so she has access. Activity search confirms Carol's Splunk connections were all allowed through the IT private apps rule. Now back on our case 1, Lee's desktop with VPN still connected. Let's start the ZTNA enrollment process. Clicking Enroll in the Zero Trust Access module, sign in to enroll with lee.chang at d1.pseudoco.org. Selecting the SSE Sales Demo Secure Access organization for Lee's ZTNA enrollment. Sudoku SSO authentication, entering credentials to complete Lee's Zero Trust enrollment. Enrollment is loading, and done. The green checkmark and enrolled status confirms ZTA is now active on Lee's machine. Now watch this. Lee disconnects VPN and opens File Explorer. We're going to test file server access via ZTNA instead. Accessing SMB with ZTNA, navigating to smb.d1sudoku.org, but this time through Zero Trust, not VPN. And the SMB share loads via ZTNA. Lee and public folders are right there, accessible without VPN. On the admin side, activity search shows the ZTNA client-based connection. There's our ZTNA session to SMB. Event details confirm the HR private apps rule, allowed the connection to the file server via Zero Trust. Lee's files are still accessible through ZTNA. Zero Trust provides the same access as VPN. Now let's test something interesting. SSH access with ZTNA from an unauthorized host. Lee opens PuTTY on KST1. Connecting to hqserver1.d1pseudo.org on port 22, but Lee is not in the IT group. Access denied, network error, connection aborted. Lee doesn't have permission to SSH into HQ Server 1. Back on the admin side, HQ Server 1 resource shows 6 total requests. Carol's connections succeeded, but Lee's were blocked. Activity search shows Lee's blocked SSH attempt. Event details confirm user is not allowed access. Now on WKST2, Carol starts her ZTNA enrollment. You can see the Enroll ZTNA annotation on Cisco Secure Client. Carol signs in as carol.freeman at d1.sudoku.org and selects the SSE Sales Demo organization. Sudoku SSO authentication for Carol's Zero Trust enrollment. Entering the password. Congratulations, Carol has successfully enrolled. She now has both ZTA and VPN access. Now let's test SSH from an authorized host. Carol opens PuTTY on RWKS2 for the same server Lee was blocked from. Logging in as carol.freeman, password accepted. Carol has access because she's in the IT group. Carol is now at the carol.freeman at HQ Server 01 prompt. SSH via ZTNA works perfectly from the authorized Windows 11 host. Admin side activity search shows Carol's ZTNA connections. Event details confirm the IT private apps rule allowed SSH. Access details show a ZTA client-based connection to HQ Server 1 with endpoint location and posture data. Carol opens Chrome and clicks the Internet bookmark. Let's test accessing the Internet portal via client-based ZTNA. Sudoku Projects dashboard loads right up. Carol's Windows 11 endpoint passes all the posture checks. Admin confirms Carol's Internet access was allowed through the All Employees Apps rule. Event details show the destination is internet.d1.sudoku.org, matched by the All Employees Apps rule via ZTA client-based. Now let's go back to Lee's machine, RWKST1. We're going to attempt internet access via client-based ZTA on Windows 10. This site can't be reached. Connection reset. Lee's Windows 10 fails the client-based posture check. Remember, it requires Windows 11. So let's try web-based ZTNA instead. Signing in through the Cisco Secure Access portal as Lee.Chang. Sudoku SSO authentication for the browser-based clientless ZTNA access. Entering the password, and the Sudoku intranet loads via clientless ZTNA. Browser-based access works from Windows 10 through Chrome. Now let's test with a non-allowed browser. Opening Firefox. Check access with a non-allowed browser. Sudoku SO login in Firefox, entering lee.chang at d1.sudoku.org and the password. Browser not allowed. Cisco Secure Access blocks Firefox. Only Chrome and Microsoft Edge are permitted. On the admin side, let's look at the access policy. Selecting all employees' apps to review the posture configuration. Here's the posture policy. You can see Zero Trust client-based and Zero Trust browser-based profiles are both attached. Windows 11 only for client-based access, and Chrome and Edge only for browser-based access. That explains exactly what we just saw. Activity search shows Lee's clientless ZTNA sessions. Chrome access was allowed, but Firefox was blocked by the default rule. Now let's move on to the IPS feature. We're going to test intrusion prevention on both workstations. Lee opens the IPS test bookmark on ARP-KS1. Notice the IPS not enabled overlay. This is for the HR rule. The Secure Access IPS test page runs exploit.py, attempting exploit, and with no IPS protection, it goes right through. On the admin side, the IPS test site resource details show two associated rules: HR IPS test site and IT IPS test site. The HR IPS test site rule has only a security profile, no IPS enabled, no intrusion prevention for HR. Switching to RW Case 2, Carol reconnects VPN via SAML to prepare for the IPS test on her IT profile. Carol navigates to ipstestsudo.org, same IPS test page running the same exploit. IPS enabled. This client is protected. The IPS engine successfully blocked the simulated attack. That's the difference. On the admin side, the IT IPS test site rule has IPS enabled. A custom IPS profile with intrusion prevention is active. The IPS profile details show prevention mode with 9,660 block signatures, 491 log only, and 42,177 ignore rules. Navigating to IPS profiles. Here's the custom IPS test site profile with the server web app Nessus 2.x404 probe signature. An activity search confirms Carol's IPS test was blocked by the custom snort rule. Intrusion prevention works exactly as configured.